A while back, the economists characterized data in the introduction of big data, probably around 2012 or something, as the new oil, as a resource. So you have to look at data as a resource. And data became larger and larger because of two things, really. The Internet of Things, casting off tons of exhaust from your refrigerator, your car, everything else, and social
Yeah.
media, huge exhaust from that as well. So now you have all this data. The price of storage has come way down. So the data, there's no ROI on transforming, formatting all that data. You just store it because the cost of storage is so low. So all that exhaust is just stored somewhere. Now you have all this fuel. So the what can you do with that? It can't be handled by normal statistics. Now machine learning becomes practical because of uh, high compute, like NVIDIA with gaming GPUs that were introduced that could handle a machine learning algorithm that learns over and over, trains and tests for days to come up with the optimal solution, looking at the patterns and all that data. So that becomes practical now. And that means that all that data that's been exhausted from uh, social media, Internet of Things, your internal infrastructure can be used to develop models, decision support, uh, agents now, AI agents that can solve different problems for customers and so forth.
There are a lot of relying on agentic AI, and it's a boom. I mean, there is no other thing going on right now. Everyone is focusing on agentic. Have you tried it? How
Yes.
how, how can it help? I mean, at to what extent? There is also conversation about responsible AI and guardrails on AI decisions,
Yeah.
human factor in the AI emotional aspect. How all that can be handled using agentic AI to make big decisions on behalf of businesses.
Well, I built some agents myself and I put my abilities up against them. I did a test, like a competition between what I could do with machine learning and interpreting it and coming up with answers versus an AI agent. Well, first of all, agentic AI relies on Gen AI, which is another level of machine learning. When we're talking about machine learning, that means a lot of things. But as data became more available, we got into deep learning, which could deal with many, many layers of complex representations of data, like photos and image recognition, all that. And then Gen AI, which are these large language models like Gemini, ChatGPT, and so forth, that actually create new data. So now you've got a machine that's not giving you back, this is a customer, but you have a machine making up answers, and you have all the implications of that. So an AI agent can be hooked up to one of those machines. And so not only does it have all the power of like a Gemini behind it, but also the speed. For example, for me as a statistician looking at the data, there's no way I can come up with the solutions as
Yeah.
quickly as an AI agent. For example, in my competition, I gave it access to one of my machine learning models, and I said, "Here, if you look at this customer data, come up with a program to market to those customers." 45,000 different customers, and it came up with an individual program for each of those customers, like that. It would take me weeks to come up with that, to analyze all the data for each of those customers. You could imagine huge spreadsheet, columns and columns, and come up with a program to communicate to each of those customers individually. There's no way I could compete with that. Now, there's things I can do that maybe I know things that the machine doesn't have access to, or I can think a big picture where we want to go. So, human being involved, I think, is still important. But for just the ability to look at a large amount of information and come up with a solution, it's super handy for that. I think you're going to see it in dashboards, replacing dashboards or supplementing it, all kinds of purposes in a company where you just want quick response with all the data we're talking about. A human just can't make sense out of this huge big data that most of these companies have.
Yeah, and reporting is also turning into like real-time notifications.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You ask a question, you don't have to go through these huge Tableau or Power BI dashboards, I hook it up to the same data and you just say, well, give me a customer that's likely to buy this product. Here's a description of the product. We haven't even introduced it yet. Give me a list of those customers, and like that, you got it. You don't have to figure it out yourself. It will give you the recommendation.